Welcome to Haunted Escapes with Chris and Diane.
This podcast will cover our trips to haunted hotels and locations.
We will go over a brief history of the location, our personal experiences, and even rate some of the ghost tours in that area.
Join us on our haunted escapes.
Resembling a fortress standing guard over the town of Jim Thorpe, formerly known as Mach Chunk, the historic Old Jail Museum is a beautiful two-story stone structure. In 1995, it was purchased by Tom McBride and his wife Betty Lou of Jim Thorpe. The building is best known as the site of the hanging of 7 Irish coal miners known as the Molly Maguires. Molly Maguires was an Irish 19th century secret society active in Ireland, Liverpool, and parts of the eastern United States. Best known for their activism among Irish American and Irish immigrant coal miners in Pennsylvania. Known as the Day of the Rope, Alexander Campbell, Edward Kelly, Michael Doyle, and John Donahue were hanged at the same time on gallows erected inside the Old Jail Museum cell block. On March 28th,
Hi everyone, Diane here. I'm just jumping in to say that I searched high and low for pictures of the Molly Maguires, but I can't find any on the internet that are for sure them, except for I did go to famoustrials.com, and you would just have to search for the Molly Maguires. It has most of them there except John Donahue and Thomas P. Fisher. I will link that down in the description, and let's get back to the video.
1878, Thomas P. Fisher was hanged here, and on January 14th, 1879, James McDonnell and Charles Sharp were hanged on the same gallows. Historians today feel the Molly Maguire trials were a surrender of state sovereignty. A private corporation, a coal railroad company, initiated an investigation through a private detective agency, the Pinkertons, which was a private police force of the Coal and Iron Police, arrested the alleged offenders, and private attorneys, which were employees of the coal companies, prosecuted these men. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania provided only the courtroom and the gallows. Before their hanging, the men proclaimed their innocence, and today historians believe many of the condemned men were falsely accused of murder. Before his hanging, one man put his hand on the dirty floor of his cell and then placed it firmly on the wall, proclaiming, "This handprint will remain as proof of my innocence." That handprint is still visible today for everyone to view, even though past wardens have tried to eradicate it by washing it, painting it, and even taking down part of the wall and replastering it. The handprint continues to come back. The handprint was originally thought to be Alexander Campbell's, but after research, it is now thought to be Thomas Fisher's. The basement of the prison is called the dungeon and is basically a solitary confinement. The warden lived on the second floor, which is called the warden's quarters. A female wing was added later on. There is a window on the second floor that allowed the warden to look down over the prisoners, but the prisoners from below were not able to see him watching them. Again, the focal point of the cell block is the gallows where the Molly Maguires were hung. The old jail allows guided tours and a ghost hunt during the fall. Many visitors have felt uneasy or even had the feeling of being touched. Welcome back to Haunted Escapes with Chris and Diane.
Hello!
Today we're going to be talking about the old jail in Jim Thorpe. So, what were your first impressions when you walked in and saw the place?
We stayed at the Harry Packer Mansion, and that's episode 1 of our second season. That's available wherever you listen to podcasts. When we were staying there, we decided to take a walk and walk the whole town of Jim Thorpe. And when you're walking up the road, you just see this big, massive stone, and kind of looks like a castle. And it kind of reminds me of Eastern State Penitentiary. This big stone, intimidating building just up high on the hill, just looking over everything. I thought it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely like an intimidating thing to see. You know, when these planners came up with these places, they knew how to really have style with where they position these things. But the buildings, it's old. It's not as big as like Eastern State. It's not that big.
No, not that big.
But it's old. It's got a lot of the similar vibes, I guess you would say. When we went in there, they had us, you go in there, you buy a ticket, and then you watch a little video all about the Molly Maguires, because that's what the big thing about this place is. And the video is really, really good. It really explains a lot about how prejudice and racism towards a lot of the Irish immigrants when they came overseas and how they treated them and everything. It's definitely something that is worth going and watching and listening to the way that these people were treated. But after you sit through that and they talk, you watch the video, the tour guide then leads you through the doors, the same doors that the prisoners would have gone through.
Yeah.
When they were going into the prison, and once you get in there, it's very like dark and damp, and it's pretty cool. It's got a whole row both sides of the cells, and you're allowed to go into a bunch of them, and you can look at them, and you can
like the different cell blocks.
Yeah. Well, it's one cell block. There's cells in the cell block.
There's just one cell block. That's just one big cell block.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay.
And there's cells inside it. And there's a bunch of cells that you can go through. And as you go through, you can take pictures, and they tell you a bunch of stories about it, and they give you a lot of the history. They don't really go too much into the ghost part of it. It's just they talk about the history, they talk about the Molly Maguires, and they show you can kind of see like how the prisoners were treated back then and everything. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's also, you forget, like, again, the people back then were a lot smaller than the people than we are today. But even then, it's very tight, very confined, and there were multiple people in these tiny little cells, and I could just imagine it had to be like hell on earth in there with all them people packed in.
Yeah, and you're talking
little tiny cell blocks.
Yeah, and you're talking about in the summer when it's probably 80, 90, 100 degrees, and they're all packed together. Yeah, it's definitely not somewhere I would want to be. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, even when we go to Eastern State Penitentiary, I've been there before. Chris hasn't been there before. We're hoping to go there in a couple months. But even going there, you see just how tight and confined everything was compared to, just the bars on the doors and just the open cells that they on modern day prisons.
Yeah. And as you go through, they have you sit down right in front of the gallows, and then they tell you about the day of the rope, which was when these people who were supposedly Molly Maguires were hung. It was all sounds like the more we've learned and everything, it sounds like a lot of it was fabricated by these rich coal miners, not coal miners, coal mine owners. Yeah, they treated them horrible, and they didn't give them any kind of pay. And the one story, if your husband was a miner and he died, because you lived, the coal company gave you lodgings, and if you lived there and your husband died, they would just drop the dead body off at your house, and then you had maybe at 48 hours to have somebody else take his place, or you would lose your home and everything you had.
That's crazy.
So a lot of little children would have to go in, and they would have to start mining for coals because it was really, really messed up.
Did you have any weird feelings inside the old jail?
Not really, besides it was it's somber and everything, but I didn't have any scary vibes. I mean, it was pretty cool. We did get to go to the cell that has the hand on it.
Yeah, the handprint.
They don't let you in there. They just kind of have the door shut, and there's a little view thing you can look through, and they tell you that's the handprint. You can see it. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, the handprint, I thought we were going to be able to go into it and look at it more closely, but they have, to preserve it and everything, which I understand and everything. They have the cell door closed, and you just look at it through the window. It's weird. It's weird how, if the stories are true, that, they took part of the wall out and this handprint still remains.
But again, that's if the stories are true. I mean, gotta look at where they very well could be true, but at the same time, this is a key thing that brings tourists in, and they don't let you in the cell. You're not allowed to take pictures of it. So I don't know if I buy the whole thing, but it is still cool to go see it.
I didn't have any weird feelings when I was looking at the handprint, but when we walked by the gallows, I felt, just a weird feeling. And upstairs in the warden's quarters and the women's wing, I had weird feelings, but you didn't have anything in that whole place?
Not really. I mean, the warden's quarters felt a little bit like oppressive, but I don't know. I wasn't like goosebumps or scared or any kind of issues like that. It was, I don't know, it was just like, I like the history about it and everything, so that was pretty interesting, learning about it and seeing that like the warden lived there on top of all these prisoners, or you got murderers, all kinds of stuff down there.
Yeah, that had to be weird.
Yeah, and the warden and his family's living upstairs. I'd be petrified. What if someone gets out? Mm-hmm. And then when they had the female wing literally branches right off of the warden's bathroom. Yeah. That's another thing. It's like one of these things where, well, what happens if one of those crazy people get out and they could slaughter your whole family and you ain't gonna know. So I don't know. I was just kind of...
And then... So we did we did the tour of the jail, and then we also went down into the dungeon. That was pretty cool. It was like pitch black down there.
Yeah, the dungeon was neat. It was totally black. It was totally pitch black. I mean, you couldn't really see anything. They had a couple little red light bulbs lit up, and I get it, it's for like the ambiance, but then you can snap pictures into the different cells and walk into them. Mm-hmm. But that was cool, and it was like a dungeon. They would like shackle them in there and stuff, and they'd be locked in there. And the one story the guy told us was like they give you like a bucket to do your business in, and if it got overflowed, it would be all over the floor, and you were sleeping in your own mess. And
that's disgusting.
Yeah, it is, and they wouldn't do anything about cleaning it or nothing like that. So it was interesting.
And we had a whole trip planned to go back to Jim Thorpe for the fall festival. However, we ran into some bad luck and Chris hurt his knee, but we are going over the old jail from when we were there earlier this year.
Yes, and because we couldn't get back there, we talked to some of the people who worked there, like the tour guides, and they told us their stories. And then they also told us about a book to get, which the book has a lot of those stories and then more in it. And the book, we're going to be reading things out of the book as well as telling you the stories they told us. And the book is called The Ghosts of the Molly Maguires, A Decade of Strange and Unusual Happenings in the Old Jail, Jim Thorpe, PA. And it's by Betty Lou McBride and Kathleen McBride Sizak. And so there are a lot of stories in here that we're also going to be telling you, and then there were ones that our guide actually told us about. So we'll tell you the ones that we were told, then we'll tell it. And then if it's one out of the book, we'll tell you a little bit out of the book. We didn't go into a lot of the stuff in the book, only a few, because there are a lot of cool stories in here, and you should buy the book. Yeah. And read them, because it's a pretty cool read.
Yeah, I like the book a lot. We read it as soon as we came back. I think we went through it and reread it. Yeah. But it was also when we were in the jail, I think in the kitchen portion, there were people who sent in their experiences, and they had them all over like the kitchen area, and you can go
like
to the jail and read them too. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, you can read them while you're there. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I guess we'll start. And we'll start with one of the stories we were told. And we had gone through the whole tour, and I stopped the young lady who was our tour guide, and I asked her if she had any paranormal activity and stuff like that, and she's like, oh yeah, there's tons here. And one story she told us was she was doing like checking for the closing rounds when they were closing up, and she was up into the warden's area, the warden's chambers where he lived and everything, and she's like, she was in the one room and she heard what sounded like talking coming from one of the other rooms. Oh no. And she said she went to like investigate it, and as she went walking in there, she was looking around, she couldn't find anybody, and as she turned to leave, one of the doors slammed shut right in her face, and she said she like just happened to put her hand up at the last minute.
Oh no.
And it stopped from smacking her right in the face.
Like one of them big heavy doors?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it like swung open and it almost hit her, and she just happened to like see it coming, and she threw her hand up. Yeah. And it cracked her hand, and it didn't hit her face, but she's like, if she had been a couple seconds,
yeah, that could have done some damage.
Yeah, she said it could have like busted her nose. So that's one of the stories that the woman who took us around, told us about the place. Then there's a story.
So this one says, 2 12-year-old girls were excitedly whispering to each other while on a tour. One of the girls then told her guide, "There's a hand on my shoulder, and I have a terrible, terrible chills." As the tour guide approached the dungeon, her red-haired friend refused to go inside. Soon after, the guide again heard the girls whispering. "They're here," one girl said to the other. Both girls now physically trembling. Get out of here.
That's cool. That's got like poltergeist things.
Yes.
And that was another one of the story that, like, similar to that the woman who took us on the tour said, was that said to happen a lot. Like, a lot of people who go to the jail or a lot of the tour guide, and she said it's a lot of the times it's women.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that they'll be walking around in the dungeon area or in the cell block area, and they'll feel somebody like touch them or grab at their hair or grab at their shirt. And she said it happened to her and one of her friends one day when they were walking around with, like, people. And the one person who was in the group, the tour guide had, like, something pull her shirt. And the woman in the tour group actually saw, like, the fabric.
Oh, that's crazy.
Like, move, like someone was pulling. And the tour guide said she, like, just kind of froze. And the girl was next to her. And the tour guide's like, "You saw that, right?" And the girl was like, "Yeah, I saw it." That's a pretty cool story. And it basically goes with something similar that happened in the book. So I didn't have no one grabbing me. It's pretty cool that one of the stories that this girl told kind of similar to one of the ones in the book.
And I know the tour guide said that she gets, like, after her tours, the people will come up to her and say that they get feelings of, like, overwhelming sadness, and they don't really know why.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially probably around those gallows, because, especially with the Molly Maguire stories, those guys were pretty much framed.
Yeah.
And they were killed, so you could understand that. Okay, here's another story. There was a guide who was in the dungeon waiting for her tour to come down the stairs from the cell block when suddenly she heard the shuffle of feet on the dirty floor and felt someone near her. She says it sounded like someone was dragging their feet and it made a loud noise right beside her. Turning to see if someone was there, she found that she was alone and her group hadn't even come down the steps yet.
Oh no. I can imagine that must be something constant there, where you hear footsteps or you see something out of the corner of your eye.
Yeah, I think so too. That's something that easily I could see happening probably a lot. There's probably a lot of people there who have actually, like, had that happen in it. So yeah, it makes sense. That would be weird though. And then there was this one story that the girl was telling us that there is a 3rd floor inside the jail, but you can't see. Like, when you're sitting outside, you don't really see where it is. But when you're inside, you can walk into the area where, like, the visitors would have sat with, the glass. They could talk back and forth and stuff.
Yeah, that was really weird too. It's, again, very, very confined.
And then you would, like, they have a spiral staircase. That's what you follow up to go to the warden's room. And then there's another, it goes up again, up to the 3rd floor. And
is that where the library is?
I think so, but it was closed when we were there.
Yeah.
And she said that the one day the staff goes up there.
Yeah.
And she said the one day she was up there, again, it was right around closing, and they, like, basically, like, pull straws to see who has to go check these rooms because of all the creepy stuff that happens. And she had to go upstairs, so she went up the stairwell, and she got up to the 3rd floor, checked everything up there, and then she was in one of the rooms up there, and she heard what sounded like somebody was walking in the room next to her. She called out thinking it was going to be somebody there. Nobody answered her, so then she thought they were trying to scare her, so she started coming back, and she was like, "Yeah, really funny." And she says that, like, as she went into the room, she got a real weird feeling.
Yeah.
And then she, like, yelled for somebody, and she heard what sounded like footsteps going down
Oh, no.
the steps. So it's like as if somebody was messing with her and she calls and then they're like, uh-oh, they're going to get caught. So they ran away.
Yeah.
So the footsteps ran away from her down the stairs. And then the guy she was working with was down in, like on the first floor where, like I said, that little room is where they would talk to people and visiting.
Yeah.
And the guy yelled up to her, what's going on? And she asked him, she's like, well, are you just up here? And he's like, nah, I just came in from finishing up, like, the cell block area, and I heard you, like, screaming. He's like, so I'm just getting here now. And then she said she told him what happened, and he said he didn't see anybody coming down the stairs.
Oh, that's spooky.
So that's pretty cool. That's a cool story.
So the next story is, in order to bring the jail up to fire code standards, concrete was poured over the wood floor in each cell except for the floor in cell 17, which is the cell with the mysterious handprint on the wall. Interestingly, the floor of this cell was not changed and the original wood floor remained. Because of the wood floor, the cell was not up to code, and prisoners were not to be placed in this cell. Even so, one day a very difficult prisoner was brought into the prison and placed in cell 17. We were told that the man screamed because he saw two people walking through the closed door and bolted iron of his cell. After about 3 hours, the man was moved to another cell.
And that's one of the stories that's in the book.
Yeah.
So that's coming from whoever wrote the story. So that's pretty cool. That's crazy.
Yeah, it would be the McBrides.
Yes. That's a pretty cool story though. I could see that. Well, that's one way to make it so he doesn't misbehave anymore. Just start threatening him. Hey, you keep acting up, we're going to stick you in that cell. Use it as a way to make them behave themselves.
So then, it seems like there must be something weird going on with that cell 17 and not just the handprint. Maybe the whole cell is haunted and not just the handprint.
Well, yeah, that's probably what it is. It's the cell's supposed to be haunted. The handprint is just there to make you be like, oh wow, it's real, and like there's a creepy story about everything that they tried to get rid of it. It keeps coming back. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean the whole cell would probably be considered haunted if you ask somebody. I mean, that's how it seems to me anyway.
Because the one Molly Maguire, he put his hand in the dirt and he's like, this is going to stay here to prove my innocence. So, like, is his spirit still there?
I don't know. I mean, it could be his spirit still there, or you could look at it as it's just because the handprint's still there. Maybe most of him moved on, but maybe there's some kind of a residual thing because he still hasn't been proven innocent. Okay, so this is another story from the book, and this is sometime before 1995. One night, two guards were making their regular rounds after visiting hours. One guard noticed two men on the second floor of the cell block sitting and playing cards. He asked another guard, why are there still two visitors here? The other guard replied, what are you talking about? There's no visitors still in the building. Everyone is gone. And the guard said, well, come and tell me who these two men are. But when they returned to the spot where the first guard had seen the two card players, nobody was there. That's cool. And I remember that was another thing the tour guide said that happens a lot in there.
Yeah, they see the people playing cards.
Yeah, they'll see them playing cards and stuff like that. And they actually have, like, on the main middle of the cell block is, like, where they would feed them.
Yeah.
It was, like, not only was it, like, the hall to walk up and down, but it was also, like, the mess hall. And they had cards and games and stuff out because they said that people have said that they've seen things there. They've seen apparitions playing cards. They've noticed, like, checkers moving and nobody's around. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And this actually goes as part of, I guess, that last story. It says that the prisoners in cell 24 were known to often play cards in the evening, and afterwards they would stack the cards and put them on a stand. In the morning, the prisoners would find the cards strewn around the floor, even though they had not touched them and their cell door had been securely locked all night. So that goes back to they played the cards during the day, they put the cards away, and then the spirits were playing the cards at nighttime when everybody's supposed to be sleeping.
Well, yeah. They get bored too.
Oh, yeah, man. Why not?
There's not much to do there.
Yeah, no, you're just wandering around aimlessly. Then here's one from the book. September 1995. I can see people in there, insisted a man from Hasselton, PA. When I look in that cell, I see two people inside. We assured him that cell 17's door is always locked and no one is allowed inside. Later, when he viewed the photographs he had taken in the cell block for a promotional tape, he saw 3 ghost-like figures in the photos. So that goes back...
That's cell 17 again?
That's again the thing with the guy who the prisoner was in there and he saw these 3 guys walk through and now somebody else saw it. So
that's more validation.
So now it's another individual saying that they saw something in that cell. So yeah, it kind of makes you think maybe there's a little bit more to it. That's pretty cool.
I wish we were able to take pictures in there, but...
Yeah, when you go there, they don't let you take pictures of the cell block 17. They have like a postcard thing that you can buy.
Of the handprint.
And they say that they don't want you taking pictures because they don't want it, I guess, getting damaged. I don't know.
Yeah.
So...
Well, it's really old. It's from the 1800s.
Well, yeah.
So they need to...
Yeah, but at the same time, if they did all this other stuff and that couldn't get rid of the handprint, you think somebody's photo camera would? I think that's more like a, come buy it. It wasn't expensive. I think it was like $3, not even, maybe like $1 something for the postcard, but I think that's probably what that's more about. Here's another one. This one's in the book. It's from 2005. It says, one day our guides were talking about the difficulty each one of them had breathing and speaking when they would take visitors up to the warden's bedroom on the 2nd floor. That's what you said.
Yes.
You had the weird feelings too.
I felt weird up there. Did not like it up there.
He said, boy, I can't talk when I get up there. Can you? Do you have trouble breathing in the bedroom? Wonder what's up with the bedroom because I can't keep on talking up there. I realized I too was out of breath during this part of the tour, but I had simply attributed to having just climbed a long flight of stairs and being older than our teenage guides. We had no idea why this shortness of breath happens in the bedroom area, but it happens to each of our guides on a regular basis. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I did not like it. I felt weird up in the warden's area and in the woman's cell. I did an EVP in the woman's area. I don't think I caught anything, but I did a EVP session that I'll post, see if you guys can hear anything that I didn't.
Yeah, Diane did some EVPs while we were there. Because after you go through like the actual cell block and they take you down to the dungeon area, you're with the tour guide. But then after that, when you come back out of the doors, you're allowed to kind of
like roam around,
just not inside the cell blocks. But that's when you're allowed to go like on your own. That's when you can walk into the kitchen and they have stuff in the kitchen. And then you can walk up the stairs to the warden's chamber, and you can walk around up there. Now, when we went there and we went up to the warden's chambers, there was like nobody else up there. It was just me and Diane. So there's like any kind of weird things that if she caught anything on the tape, there was nobody up there. It was just us. They had mannequins in the women's jail wing, and they freaked Diane out, which was pretty funny. I wanted to tell one more story that they had told me. There was this one story that, again, the tour guide was telling me about. And she said that, when you're in there, you can take pictures of the cell block. She said there was this one photo where this guy was taking a picture of, like, the gallows. Mm-hmm. And after the photo, he got what looks like a person
hanging
with like the bag over their head that they would put over their head when they hung them right up by the gallows.
That's crazy.
And she said that he he took the picture, and it was back before we had smartphones, so it was, I guess,
like a digital camera.
Yeah, like a camera where you had to get film done. Mm-hmm. And after he took the picture, he sent the picture, like a copy of the picture, to them at the jail. And they saw it, and they had a picture of it. Looks like a person with like a bag over their head standing by the gallows.
Oh, that's crazy.
And you said that the gallows really creeped you out.
Yes, I did not like it over there. I felt weird. Just like a weird, I don't know, just like you get chills. Like you get chills in certain parts of this place, and it's weird. It's like somebody's watching you or looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, I did get that feeling. It did feel like somebody was usually maybe watching where you were going and seeing what you were doing, but I just kind of didn't think anything of it because we did have quite a few people with us that day.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way they break the tour down is it's different times and they fill up pretty quickly, so if you go you should try to get there early so that you know you can get a good tour. And I forget how many they do a day, but they only do a certain amount during the day, so you'll want to. We went right as they opened. We were the first group through, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
It's a great place to go to if you're into the history or you're into the ghost or you're just into even old prisons. It's a great place to visit. But I'm telling you, as soon as you step through those doors, you get it. It's just a weird feeling. And if any of you guys have been there, we'd love to know your feelings and thoughts on it. If you have stories of your own from there, or from Jim Thorpe, or from the Harry Packer Mansion Inn, we're always up to hearing your guys' stories, and you can email us at penepicproductions@gmail.com, or contact us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I'm gonna try to start a Twitter, which is now known as X. I'm gonna start one of those accounts too.
Yeah, so again, the entire trip to Jim Thorpe was really cool. We're going back, hopefully, as long as nothing else happens. Unfortunately to us, we're slated to go back there again in March.
Yes.
But we're staying at a different place that is also supposedly haunted. Because they got a bunch of bed and breakfasts there, and there's a lot of them that have supposed ghost stories and things. So we're going to go back there in March. We're going to stay at that one and see what kind of stories we can hear about it. So, again, the book that we got some of these stories out of is called Ghost of the Molly Maguires, A Decade of Strange and Unusual Happenings in the Old Jail, Jim Thorpe, PA. It's by Betty Lou McBride and Kathleen McBride Sizak. Really cool book. Definitely, if you go there, I would recommend getting it and reading it so you can really hear about more. There's a bunch more stories. Like I said, we only wanted to do only a few because,
Yeah.
You should get the book and check it out on your own. It wasn't really expensive or anything. It doesn't even have the price on it, but I don't think it might have been like maybe $10. But yeah, definitely a cool little read. Got some really cool stories in there, and it's by the people who own the place, so that's pretty cool. Thank you for listening and joining us on another one of our Haunted Escapes.
Yes, thank you for joining us on another episode, and thank you to everybody who has listened before, who has joined our Facebook group, who has watched on YouTube, and we also want to shout out a podcast, Ouch, Was That a Ghost? We become friends with them through Facebook and through the social media channels. If you like our podcast, you will love their podcast. They're two great ladies, very funny, and they have some good information and some spooky information on things that are interesting and that go bump in the night.
Yeah, and another thing I want to talk about, we're going to be doing a special Halloween episode, which is going to be stories, just another story thing where we're going when we did last season, we're going to tell personal stories about things, and we were going to put one of our listener stories in this one, but because we did the Jim Thorpe, his story takes place up in the Lizzie Borden house.
Yeah.
So we're
go there too.
We're gonna save that story for the Halloween one, and we're going to have some, just some stories from some family members, some friends, and of course, if any listeners have any, and you want your stories told, by all means, again, you can just email us at penepicproductions@gmail.com, and we'll tell your stories as well. That should be fun.
Yeah, that's going to be our next episode, will be the Halloween episode with all of the listener stories and our personal stories, and we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun time.
Yes, it should be a lot of fun. We're going to have a couple little things from our nephews who have been asking.
Yeah.
to do something with for the podcast. So we're going to have some of their stories. I don't know if we're going to be able to maybe get them on live talk and they can tell the stories instead of us telling them, but we're going to work all those kinks out before the Halloween thing. That one will probably be the weekend before Halloween. Just got released back to work. I'll be going back to, because I've been out. So I'm going back to work starting tomorrow. So a lot of hours. So next weekend, I don't know if we're going to be doing one, but we're going to be trying to get one out the weekend before Halloween. And that should be, if everything works out, that should be this one we're talking about now with people's stories and our stories and everything. If you got any stories, send them in. Hopefully we'll hear from you and you'll tune in again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us on another Haunted Escape. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, and one more thing. If you're in the Bucks County, Pennsylvania area, our listener Brian is working at Valley of Fear for this spooky season. Again, thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, and follow us everywhere. Bye.